today's lesson is from section 11.1 and it's on histograms. If you want to get out your notes and get ready to take some notes, it'd be great. Okay, the first thing that we want to talk about today is the different ways that we can report frequency. And there's 3 key terms that you need to write down. So you can pause the video and copy this down, and then I'll go over each of the different each of the different ways that you can record frequency. And when you're copying down your notes, make sure that you not only copy down the definition, but you also copy down the 3 different ways that you can display the data. So you should have the definition as well as the table or the chart or the graph, okay? So the first one is a frequency table, and what it is it's a data display that lists each data item with the number of times it occurs. So if we had a set of numbers, and we'll say it's from 1 to 6, so we put the numbers in the table here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I go through my list of numbers and I just make tally marks. So here with the number 1, we have 1, 2, 3 tally marks. So as I go through the list, I just tally as I see the number, and then at the end I count up the tally marks and I write down what the frequency is, or how many times I see that number. Then what you can do is, once you have your frequency table, that's going to help you create your different displays of data. And the first one is a line plot, and that's a data display which displays the data with X marks above the number line. So if we were to take this frequency table right here, we could create this line plot. And you can see here that we write down the numbers that are in the first column. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I took the frequency and put X's above each of the numbers, showing how many times that number occurs. So for number 1, we had a frequency of 3. So I made 1, 2, 3 X's above the 1. The 2, there's a frequency of 2, so I have 2 X's, and so on. And we'll go over in the first example, we'll go over how to actually make one from a set of data. And then the final data display is a histogram. And a histogram shows the frequency of data items as a bar graph. Now there are 3 things that you need to keep in mind when you're making a histogram. A histogram looks very much, if you look at this here, it looks very much like a bar graph. And it is kind of like a bar graph, except for a histogram has numbers on both the x-axis and the y-axis. Because a lot of times when we see bar graphs, instead of a number interval on the x-axis, we often see, like if we surveyed people on their favorite kinds of pop, you may see Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Mountain Dew, something like that, or your favorite colors, or your favorite movies. Here we have number intervals, so the number of hours that batteries live are on, or the life of a battery is on the x-axis. So let's look at these 3 things. The first one here, data are often grouped into intervals. So you can see here the intervals we have from 9 to 12, from 13 to 16, 17 to 20, and 21 to 24 hours. Now, the intervals must be of equal size, and they do not overlap. So what that means is, like here, this bar goes from 9 to 12, and then the second bar here, so the first bar that's made goes from 9 to 12. The next bar here goes from 13 to 16. So you see there's not an overlap. We don't go from 9 to 12, and this goes from 12 to 16. So no numbers are used twice. And then this goes from 17 to 20, and then the last one goes from 21 to 24. Now, so that shows that there's no overlap, so the numbers aren't used twice. Now they're of equal size. What that means is that if I count the numbers in this interval between 9 and 12, so we have 9, 10, 11, 12, this interval is 4. And if we go from 13 to 16, we have 13, 14, 15, 16. This interval is 4 as well. And if we go from 17 to 20, 17, 18, 19, 20, that interval is 4. And then in the last interval or bar, we have 21, 22, 23, and 24. So we have 4 numbers that are included in that interval. So you always want your intervals to be equal. Now on the y-axis, you're always going to have the frequency. So that's the number of times that it occurs. So you would have always start at 0, and then you go up if you count by 1s or 2s or 5s. It depends on your data as to how you're going to number your frequency on the y-axis. Okay, so let's make a line plot. Here are the steps. Using the information from our frequency table, we're going to create a line plot, and then we're going to use a number line, put an X mark above the number for each time the number occurs in the data set. So the first thing we need to do is take our data and create a frequency table. So this is the number of students in math classes. So we have 24 in one class. So I'll put a tally mark here. 27, 21, 2 25s, 1, 2, 28, 22, 23, 2 25s again, or 28, 22, 23, other 25. Now make that across for 5, 22. I always like to cross these off too so I know that I've counted that number, included it. 27, and then the last one is 22. Okay, so now once I have the tallies, I'm going to write the frequency. So there's one class of 21, 4 of 22, 2 of 23, 2 of 24, 6 classes of 25, 0 classes of 26, 2 classes of 27, and 3 classes of 28. So now I'm going to write the numbers in the classes along the along the line graph. So we have 21, 22, 23, okay, and then finally 28. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put X's above each number. So for 21, there's 1X. 22, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 23 has 2 X's. 24, there are 2 classes of 24, 6 classes of 25. Now when you make your X's, you want to make them relatively the same size. So look at, if you see here, this, when you have 4 X's, it should line up pretty evenly with the 4 X's and the other bars that you're putting up. So 26, there's 0, so we'll skip over that. 27, we have 2. And then 28, we have 3. All right, so that is a line plot. Oh, and we should always title this. So this math classes, and down here we would call this number of students. Okay, making a histogram. Here are the steps for making that. Number one, you're going to make a frequency table. 2, make an L shape on the bar graph. That just means that you're going to make this on your graph paper, and you should always use graph paper. Decide what the interval will be on the x-axis. Are you going to count from 0 to 3, 0 to 4, 0 to 5, 0 to 10, etc.? And remember, you want to typically have about 4 intervals. So you're going to number the y-axis from 0 to the highest frequency, and then you're always going to call the y-axis, the name for that is always going to be the frequency. The bars in each of the intervals will count how many numbers fall in that interval, and remember to label the x and y axis and give the graph a title. So let's make one. This here is an example of some test scores. There are 26 different test scores. Excuse me. And I've already gone through and created the frequency table. So all we're going to do is create the histogram. So once you have the frequency table done, which I've already done for you, then we can go over here and decide, okay, what is our frequency going to be? Now, our frequency, we start, the lowest number of tests is 0, and then we go up to 11. So if we start here at 0, I don't think we're going to be able to count up to 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to have to count by 2s. So we can graph all of this in our graph paper. So we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Now we need to decide what is our interval going to be for the test scores on the x-axis. Well, if you look here, it's pretty nice because the test scores are already, and if you look here, I've already made a mistake. This should be to 19, 29, 39, because here I have overlap. 20's counted here and 20's counted here. So I apologize for making this mistake. So our intervals are going to be test scores that are in the 0 to 9%, 10 to 19, and then we have the 20% range, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, and then 90%, and then we'll include 100 in that. Well, actually, we should have an interval here that would be 100 to 109, but we didn't have any 100%, so that's what the interval should look like. So I apologize for doing this incorrectly. So we can start here for from the 10 to 19. So inside the box we will have 10 to 19, and then 20 to 29. Even though there's not anything in the 20%, we still need to include that. And we have 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, we have the 60 range, the 70 range, and their test scores are measured in percentages. So let's make our bars. So from 10 to 19%, we had 1. So we're going to go halfway. Nothing from 20 to 29. We had 1 person score in the 30s. And then 40 to 49, we had 2 people score. And this is actual data from one of my classes last year. And then 50 to 59, as you can see, there are some people who didn't do too well on the test. And then 60 to 69, there's 1. 70 to 79, there are 4. Now people are starting to do a little better. 80 to 89 is 5, so we're going to go halfway in between 4 and 6. And then the last one, from 90 to 99, there were 11. And that's what a histogram looks like. And remember, I labeled with the titles on my X and Y axis, and then I also gave a title to my graph. That's all. Let us know if you have any questions.